So we wanted to have an Excalibur webinar to kind of give anyone who needed it a refresh and to just go over the basics before submitting. There's a lot to kind of keep in mind as you're writing your entry, and hopefully this presentation will help you do that. Kevin and Manne from the University at Buffalo will be our presenter.
Thanks. Welcome. And just a little bit about us before we get started. I'm Kevin Manne. I've been a part of 11 Excalibur wins, according to my count, at least 11, including one platinum. Some I do individually, some as part of a work team. I also assist colleagues with their entries as well. Some of the categories I've won in include social media, presentations, newsletters, and magazines, so a variety of categories. And I've also been on the judging side of the Excaliburs for 2 or 3 years. And just this year, I've judged the National Bronze Anvil Awards for the first time, so that was an interesting experience. I've also judged other awards, such as SUNY Quad, which is for SUNY schools in New York State here.
All right, and my name is Devon Slobodzian. I am a copywriter at Julia. I'm also the co-chair of the Excalibur Awards and serve as an assembly delegate on the PRSA Buffalo Niagara chapter. I've also had my fair share of submitting Excalibur Awards. I've won 3 platinums, as well as several golds, a silver, and a bronze, mostly in the areas of social media, annual reports, rebranding, media relations, global communication, and special events. I have also judged the National Bronze Anvil Awards this past year in annual reports.
Great. So here's the plan for this afternoon. We're going to jump into the basics, Excaliburs 101, the things you absolutely need to know to get an entry submitted and what it takes. And then we'll get a little more advanced. We're going to see what it takes to make a platinum entry. What defines the best of the best when it comes to an award entry in PRSA. And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So the basics, Excaliburs 101. The thing you want to do when you're considering an award is what was your best work in the past year? And not only that, it's what had made the biggest impact and had measurable, quantifiable results. So you'll hear us go back to that time and time again throughout this webinar, I'm sure. But if you don't have a way to measure the success of your campaign, it might not be worth submitting an entry, because it makes it very difficult for those who are judging your entry to determine whether or not your entry was a success or not, unless you tell us how you planned to measure that success. So you could have a beautiful entry, a well-written piece, a beautiful video, but if you don't give us something to judge and measure the success of that piece on changing people's attitudes or and driving them to action, then that's going to make it difficult. You also want to be sure you choose the right category. So there are a lot of categories. If you've looked at the call for entries this year or any year, you could probably find something that fits a program or project that you're working on. So I always suggest, find the piece that you think will be the biggest success and then fit it into a category, rather than looking at a category and then trying to find a piece to go into that category.
And then
go ahead.
I was just going to add, once you identify that category, keep that description at the top of your mind as you're writing, because you're going to want to frame your summary to address that category description as well.
Great, of course, yeah, good point. So Devon, do you want to run us through the difference between tactics versus campaigns and what some of the new criteria are for tactics?
Absolutely. So campaigns is our standard 2-page summary, where we expect you to have sound research, strategy, and then results. And then those areas are weighted fairly equally. However, for tactics, we've streamlined that to only be a 1-page summary. So we realize that a campaign is going to be much more in depth than a tactic would ever be, because it's just a small piece of something larger. Which is why we've taken some points away from results. We've taken that down to only 5 points, and we've have a new category that involves creativity, as well as some special nuanced elements that may just apply to a tactic that really stands out rather than a campaign as a whole.
So could you give an example of like what might be a campaign versus what might be a tactic?
Absolutely. So a campaign, we're talking about like a rebranding effort. So something that involves a logo, a website, a brochure, some other external communications, an e-blast to your internal audience. And like I said, that's research and planning, execution, and results and evaluation. Now, on the other side of things, for a tactic, let's say an online communication, that might just be one single website, maybe blogs, maybe one single video, perhaps just one annual report, and then you'll go through the planning, the content, the execution, creativity, and quality, and then the results. So the difference is, think of multiple elements together versus one specific element.
Great, perfect. So the key to any award entry is the summary. In the case of a tactic, that's going to be your one-page summary, and a campaign, that's going to be a two-page summary. But either way, this is your chance to communicate with the judge, the person who's going to be judging your entry, what it is you did, why you did it, and what the results were of that campaign or tactic. So be sure you follow the questions in the call for entries. I know as part of this revised Excalibur Awards process that we've implemented over the past year or two, we've really made an effort to spell out what it is that you will be expected to show, and also what you're going to be evaluated on as part of your submission. So be sure you follow the questions in your call for entries, compare that with the judging criteria, which we now provide to you, and be sure to tell a story and get the reader on your side. So, as somebody who's judged a number of these, you read so many and they all start to sound the same, but if you can find one that kind of shows, like, all right, here's the challenges we were up against, this is the research we did that showed why we ended up doing what we did. These were the metrics we put in place to measure our success, and then this is how we show it was successful. Those ones really stand out as entries that are strong and gold or even maybe platinum worthy. So show the problem that needed to be solved, what obstacles were in the way, and also be sure to proofread. We don't want to see any typos or mistakes. So I'll let Devon handle this slide as well. This is about the nuts and bolts of how you actually submit an entry.
Right. So just as important as while your summary really leads your entry as the crowning element, and that really should be your main focus. You don't want to forget about having proper supporting documentation. Don't skimp on this, because it can really round out your entry and complete a full story. For example, if you're doing a rebrand campaign, show what happened before, and then show visually what happened after. If you can bring any of the elements in your entry to life, this is where you're going to do it. You can show that research you did, maybe share that survey or whatever that is, or the e-blast, or additional materials to really round everything out. And we accept everything from PDFs, movies, MP4s, WAV files, and other links, so you'll have the ability to upload that. And with that online entry process, we've kind of sectioned out the physical form into 3 steps. So first, you'll submit your company or personal information. Then you'll submit the entry details, and then the last step is payment, which you can pay by credit or a check as well. So, like I said, we submit most file formats. It's just that your files cannot exceed more than 10 megabytes. And there's simple ways you can do that is by, downsizing your PDF, compressing the file. You can try to upload zip files as well. So just try to get your images compact. If you have an annual report, make sure you're uploading the low-res version. Try to avoid any high-res image files or documentation.
Great. So that brings us to the end of the 101 section. So let's move into going above and beyond. What it takes to really make your entry stand out and go platinum. The thing you want to do is tell a compelling story. I hinted at this before, but write an intro that really pulls people in. Get the reader on your side. Make it almost a persuasive document. I like that the ELI5 is explained like I'm 5. So this is a subreddit on the website Reddit. If you've ever been to it, they take these really high level like scientific theories and concepts, and they ask experts to explain it to me as if I was 5 years old. Like I have no idea what you're talking about. And you got to kind of take that same approach when it comes to your Excalibur award. You know it inside and out, but the judge that's reading your entry knows nothing about it. So you got to take them from ground zero all the way through and explain it very simply and clearly all the way throughout. A great suggestion that Devon had was to give it to somebody that did not work on the project to proof it. So that's kind of your testing ground for somebody who has no idea what's happening in this project. And I know she said, you told me yesterday that tell me the point where you start to fall asleep or you start to doze off, right? That's where I want to.
Absolutely, because that's the point where your judge is going to fall off and stop reading too. You, like Kevin said, that story should follow through the whole thing. Don't lose them when you starting to talk about your messaging strategy, or a part of the reason we want you to include your difficulties and the problems you may incur is because that adds to the life of it. It adds to that storytelling and kind of pulls that reader through, because it doesn't matter that they're just judging these awards. They want to be entertained as well. And trust me, it can happen. I've done my fair share of B2B public relations entries, and explaining like you're 5 and telling that story and making it come to life at every point is possible, even with a drive shaft and axle.
So yeah, but along those lines, you got to be sure you are clear, concise, and to the point, because you are limited on the amount of space that you have to write up these entries, especially in the tactics category. Sometimes that can be the challenge. As communicators, we tend to be a little on the wordy side, so you got to focus in to the key points that really make your case.
Yeah, and that might take a couple drafts for you to skim down and whittle it down, but just so you can make a good balance between telling a story and having all the concrete evidence and support in there.
For sure. So you want to kind of follow the 4-step process of research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. This is kind of the foundation of all good strategic public relations. So you have a solid plan and clear strategy. Again, take your reader through the process. Include these realistic goals with measurable objectives, and that is the key to a winning entry in my mind, is having good, realistic goals. So if you don't know the difference, there's goals and there's objectives. So goals are the big lofty, like we want to change attitudes and perceptions about this, and the objectives are the measurable strategic pieces of that. So in order to achieve this big goal, here are these 4 or 5 objectives that we're going to set, and here's how we're going to measure those. So another good thing you never want to overlook is your research. So these can be things as simple as, we did an audit of our internal communications. We looked at all the brochures we did, and this is what we found. There was inconsistencies across the board, and so that's why we decided to establish this template for all our different departments to follow. Research can be as basic as that. It can be, going out, looking at what your competitors are doing and benchmarking against them. It can be, doing surveys and focus groups and interviews and things like that as well. But it doesn't have to be things that you have to spend time or money. Well, you'll have to spend time doing it, but to invest in surveys and focus groups is a lot more intense than going out and doing web searches and seeing what your competitors are doing. So you have to show how this research led you down the right path to actually the decisions you decided to make. Did you have any other thoughts on that slide, Devon?
Nope, I think you covered everything with that.
Okay. So for your goals, you want to be SMART, and this is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So, for example, if you're doing an e-newsletter campaign, for example, you're going to want to say as your objective, we want to increase traffic to the employee intranet through this newsletter by 25% by the end of the fourth quarter of 2015, or something along those lines. Let's just give you an example of the kind of SMART goals you should be setting as your actual objectives in your entry. For execution, you want to include any and all tactics that you used in your campaign or tactic. Of course, using and showing illustrations of those in your supporting materials. What I like to do when I'm writing up my single or two-page entry is to cross-reference from the entry to my supporting materials. So, it'll say, I'll label my supporting materials like Appendix 1, Appendix 2, Appendix 3. And while I'm writing my entry, if I want to refer the judge to that, I'll say, see Appendix 1, see Appendix 2. It's kind of your way to expand on what you have space for in your single or two-page entry and elaborate a little bit more. Also, never overlook your budget. You want to include, even if it's, I wrote this piece and it was done all by staff time. We didn't invest any additional money in this. You need to spell that out in your entry. Otherwise, you can lose points on that. Also, be sure to include any unexpected issues or problems or challenges that you faced along the way. So, as PR pros, we try to see the road ahead and predict as much as we can, but there's always unexpected things that pop up. So be sure to include those as well, because those help build your case along the way too, because it adds more that you had to go up against.
Yeah, for example, one of the platinum entries I was awarded was for a global communications, and we were doing an event in China, and we ran into a ton of unexpected issues as far as dealing with government officials in China. Even simple things as the presentation didn't work 10 minutes before the PowerPoint, or the event time. So one of the judges' comments was that I gave this such a high score. It was because you were overcoming such incredible difficulties and opposition along the way, and you still overcome. So it really does paint a really nice picture of your efforts, and it's not a negative. It's 100% can be a positive. And even sometimes, even if you don't meet, you come short of a goal by a small margin. That's okay too. You're still showing how you got there and how you made every effort to get there as well.
All right. I gotta get my mouse back. There we go. So this is a great list of some things you can consider ways to measure your campaign. So Devon put this together, but we'll just run it down. Sales or sales leads, website traffic. I think anything you can show that you use to show how you changed attitudes or perceptions is something you can include. Also, anything that adds business value is huge. So anytime you can show that sales or sales leads went up because of a tactic you did, that's huge. So website traffic is another measure. Press kits, requests, distribution numbers, circulation figures for if you get media impressions. You don't want that to be your only measure of success. Yeah, we got a whole bunch of media impressions, but that's not showing how you changed attitudes or perceptions. That's just showing that you got media coverage, and that's not the ultimate measure of success. You want to show how you drove people to action. So another great way is to use guest counts or employee increases. So like if you're having an event, show attendance at that event, things like that. Anecdotal feedback to a higher up. For my entry that was awarded a platinum, it was a e-newsletter that we developed, and one of the things I did was I kept all of it. Anytime I sent out one of these e-newsletters, I would always get responses back about how great people thought this newsletter was. They were so excited to receive it, and so I included all those highlights, and there was feedback from the CEO too, of course, so we included that as well. Another great measure is social media engagement, likes, retweets, favorite, engaging major influencers. I like to show if there's a conversation going on around a piece that you pitched or got placed in a publication. That shows that people are not only reading it but responding to it and reacting to it. So that's a great thing I like to include. Any direct mail pieces, how many? So for those, how many you distributed to, click-through rates like that. Merchandise and video views, so sales and views on your videos. So yeah, we talked a little about supporting entries already, but again, this is a great way to bring your entry to life. So this is showing, when I judge, I'll go through and I'll read the summary, and then I want to go through and I want to see, if the material they produced lived up to what they talked about in the entry. So be sure to include as many support materials as you can. I think that the more you can include, the better. I don't think there's ever a thing as too many supporting materials. So show your before and after. So an example of the e-newsletter I showed, we had done print newsletters, and they were kind of hit or miss. The previous communications director was doing it all herself at the time. And when she added me as a staff member, I took on the role of and the responsibility of doing this newsletter. So I showed like the print newsletters before and what it turned into with the electronic version. And I think that showing progress like that definitely helps build your case. And as I explained before, this is your opportunity to elaborate. So cross-reference from your entry to your support materials. Use clear labels to direct the judge to your support materials, and integrate links into the write-up when you can, because as we know, we're digital now. We submit our entries digitally, so you don't have to worry about somebody taking your piece of paper and then having to type out a URL to actually visit your link, and they can click right on it.
Yeah, and I would just double it in multiple places. If you submitted that link as in the entry form online, include it again in the write-up, and maybe you have it again in the supporting materials in some way. It doesn't hurt to include it in more than one place. I mean, some people might click it, some people might miss it in your write-up, or so it's better to be safe and include it in multiple places than sorry that they missed it.
Completely agreed. So there are a number of resources at prsabuffaloniagara.org. So if you visit our website and go to it's under awards and then /resources/FAQs. So if you click the awards, there's a drop down, just select resources FAQs, and you'll get some great examples of past winning entries. So you'll see past that have won platinum, gold, silver. You'll get this is a tool that I found completely awesome, especially when I was submitting my first Excalibur award, the Patterson 7 Steps to Excalibur Gold. And he explains a lot of the things that we talked about here today about building your case and getting the reader on your side. And when you're first submitting an entry like this, you really don't know what a good entry looks like or what the judges are looking for. So between seeing the past winning entries and the 7 Steps to Excalibur Gold, I think you'll have a great starting point and a great leg up on the people who don't take the time to review those documents. We also have Excalibur's Mythbusters and frequently asked questions. So the Mythbusters was from a program we held about 2 years ago now, where a panel of Excalibur entrants got together and talked about what made a great case. So definitely suggest checking those documents out.
And then
that brings us, yeah.
I was just going to add one more thing, and then obviously we are always available to ask questions directly at our awards at prsabuffaloniagara.org. So, if you're ever in doubt or just want to throw us a question, feel free to contact us. Don't hesitate to reach out either.
For sure. So now's the time we have a little time for Q&A. So if our audience has any questions, we'd be willing to take those now.
I think you guys covered everything.
Well, That's good to hear. But again, like Devon said, we're always available. The email address is awards@prsabuffaloniagara.org. Be sure to get your entry in. The deadlines are April 27th at 5 p.m. for the early bird, and for the final deadline is May 4th at 5 p.m. And the address is prsabuffaloniagara.org/awards. And like I said, if you have any questions, send that to awards@prsabuffaloniagara.org.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
This concludes our webinar. Thanks for listening. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're really always as helpful and as accommodating as we can be to entrants, because we know how doing your first one, or even if you're getting back into it after a while, it can take some time and it can take some figuring out. But it's a big reward, you know, once you submit, and if you're awarded with one, you know, it's a great professional recognition. You know, you'll be honored amongst your peers and other colleagues, and it's a great night to honor the work that you've done. So if at the very least you don't submit, we do hope you still attend the awards ceremony, which will be Wednesday, June 22nd at the Trout.